I don't have any content for the vlog part this week. Hi friends, welcome back to my channel. My name is Kitsu. I'm an environmental engineer and I'm trying to build my skills with you all so that when I move back to India in 2 years, I can start a small business with my art right away. It included about 20 hours of drive in 3 days because I had to be in the field. I did not even post my shorts, so I did not get to film that much. I did bring you these amazing sunrises and sunsets from my field though. Since I did not have much content for the vlog, I decided to talk about safety with polymer clay and resin this week. You will see it in the next segment. I hope you enjoy. Alright folks, today I really want to talk about safety when doing polymer clay and UV resin, or actually any kind of resin. I do see a lot of veteran clay artists who work with both polymer clay and resin and are still not following good safety practices. And I say that as an environmental engineer who has seen some nasty stuff. I don't claim to be an expert on this. During our study, we do a lot of safety stuff, and I actually use these type of masks pretty regularly in my field, in my line of work. So there's definitely some research, some knowledge behind what I'm saying. If you find any information incorrect, please comment below. First of all, I do have this mask here, but before that, let's talk about gloves. These are the ones that I use. This is something that I use in the field as well, where I have to go out and work on contaminated sites. And when I talk about contaminated sites, it can be contaminated with anything like heavy metals, mercury, chromium. It could be VOCs, that is something that our polymer clay and UV resin emit. There could be pesticides, herbicides, which were used in the past and are now deemed fit for human exposure, right? You can be exposed via smell, via skin touch, via ingestion. So there are a lot of exposure pathways, but let's just keep our focus on polymer clay, right? I have not done a lot of resin just yet, but when I do use UV resin, I tend to use these gloves. I will put the brand of the particular ones that I'm using on my screen here. There is this site called Granger from where we usually order stuff for our company. It has a lot of safety stuff. Otherwise, Amazon is a good bet, but make sure whenever you are ordering any branded things, you order from a recognized seller rather than any random third party, because there are a lot of duplicates available out in the market, and you might think that you are buying a branded respirator or mask, but that is not the case. So these are in thickness, these are 5 mil. I do prefer the ones that cover your wrists a little bit, so normal gloves tend to stop here, but these also provide some protection to your wrists just in case you have stuff flying, you are resining something and the brush or whatever the applicator accidentally hits your wrist, and then this will save you. Another thing when you are doing resin is to make sure you are fully clothed. It would be the best if you have dedicated clothes when you are doing UV resin, so you don't use that anywhere else. So if you have any strips or drops, you are not contaminating your normal clothes. As an environmental engineer, we keep our field clothes separate because we know that, and we wash them separately. We don't wash them with your normal daily wear office clothes or home clothes because we don't want our other clothes to be exposed to them as well. That is one of the tips. So the number one tip for you guys when doing resin is use gloves. And dedicated clothes. Now, second tip is the respirator. There are very many different types of masks or respirators, and they all have different purposes. So you cannot switch this with this N95 mask or these KN95 masks, and I'll tell you why. And this is just a respirator. Here is the space, and you can see the number on this, I don't know if it's visible, is 6200. So you can just directly put 3M6200 respirator in Amazon or on Google, and you should be able to find this directly. These are the spaces where your cartridges fit, and you have different kinds of cartridges. The cartridges that I have are these. I'll actually put a colorful picture up there, but if you look at the description, it says organic vapor, acid gas, P100 filter. P100 means it will filter 100% of particulate matter when there is sand, dust, any plastic particles, it will filter those. Acid gases are, say, hydrogen sulfide, and then organic vapor. This is what you want for resin. That's what the resin emits. And I have tried resins that say low order, but you open them and they just like smell so nasty. So even if you are outside in completely open area, it's recommended that you use this. Yes. And I'll put some pictures on the screen on how they fit. There are other different type of filters. There will be filters that will say only P100. They will only do particulate matter. So you cannot use those cartridges, the round one, you might have seen those. The round ones, they will not work for resin. So you have to be very careful which one you are choosing. If you are doing only organic vapor, that you can only use for resin. If you are doing sanding, etc., you won't be able to use the cartridge that only says organic vapor, because the sanding produces particulate matter. Okay, so this particular one, I can wear it for anything and everything that is related to polymer, clay and resin. Other than this, we have N95 mask. Now N95 mask, what N95 rating means, it will filter 95% of particulate matter. Okay, so this can be used for sanding, for drilling holes in your earrings or charms, but this cannot be used when you are doing resin. When you are doing sanding for the cured resin, you can still use this, but not when you are applying resin. So that's a very big difference. I have seen people using this when they are doing UV resin. This will not protect you. I know during pandemic there were these that became popular. This is like KN95 mask. Personally, for particularly, I have used these. I still use these when I travel for in airplane, etc. I have worked in very dust heavy environments for my job, where we had to protect ourselves from silicone because the contractors were removing cement, and when you cut that, there is a lot of silica generated, and that leads to silicosis. There are really gruesome pictures for that, and all these things that you hear from artists saying their lungs got irritated and they still kept using and they cannot use stuff anymore. It settles in your lungs, you know, those small sacs you have, I think they are called bronchioles. They settle into those and then they basically wound them. So it's basically like scraping your skin, but it's inside. So that's more hurtful. And for a few of these diseases, there is no cure. So yeah, personally for KN95, I know this is not US standard, N95 is US standard. These will be able to help you with filtering the particulate matter as well. Their rating, I believe, is in a few countries in Asia where KN95 is equivalent of N95, they are easy to wear, but I do know like around your nose there are open spaces, so they might not be as effective as these really stick to you, right? This goes in your neck and this behind your head, so there is a good sealing around your nose and mouth. One thing that I wanted to highlight about the respirator, which I completely forgot, is that they have different sizes. I don't know about other countries, but in US you have different sizes. There is small, medium, large, and based on the size of your face, you should get tested before you start using the respirator. How this works is there is something called fit test, and usually you have to have a qualified person to do it, but it majorly measures whether the size that you have properly seals around your face or not, right? If your face is small but you use a large, there might be a case where you are not getting proper sealing here, right? There is space between your area around the nose and this area. That actually happens, and an easy way to find out whether the right size fits you or not is wearing your mask with the right cartridges and then lighting an incense nearby or using a perfume nearby. If you are able to smell that, that means there is a bad sealing here or here somewhere. So that means that particular size is not fit for you and you should change it. Now, baking the polymer clay. So this is something that I recently found out. I had not even paid attention to this before. My nose is a little sensitive, and because I work in such a field, I can kind of tell when there are heavy fumes happening. So recently I was baking a batch of polymer clay in my big oven, the range that we have at house, and we do not use it for baking. I like to keep my tools separate. I have mentioned this before. My tables are separate, my tools are separate. I don't mix them with the normal tools. So yeah, I was baking it, and then I went into the vicinity of the oven to grab something from the kitchen, and I realized the area around that was really heavy. So I ended up turning my exhaust on, my vent fan on, to take out any fumes that are being generated while you are baking polymer clay, so that it just goes away. And another thing that I would recommend is not cooking anything, just not being in the vicinity of that oven when the polymer clay is baking. It's always good to have your windows open, but the kitchen does not always have windows nearby, so it's always a great idea to put your vent fan on. And I will say this is not paranoia. Again, I have seen a bunch of stuff that I'm very afraid about. The chemicals are messing up with your internal systems, so it's a prudent move to protect you as much as you can, right? With UV resin also, I have seen people doing the resin in their rooms, and I'll tell you from the personal experience, right? I had the UV resin. I have used it only once, and that was just for experimenting how it works for me. And I had used it outside on my patio, and then when I brought everything in, I had everything sealed, the caps were closed and everything. However, there was still this smell around it, and then I moved it completely to a different room, and I still had lingering smell for next 5-6 days until I sealed my UV bottle into another box, into a completely sealed box, another sealed box. I want to make sure that all my fellow artists are following good practices to save their health, so that they can keep doing what they really like, what they really love. for many years to come. I have people in my family who had to stop working with a different medium because they did not know about the respirator that they should have used, and they just cannot be in a dusty environment anymore. So I would really request everyone, even if you are using this to hold your charms by the way of a pin, right, and then painting it with the resin, it's still good to have gloves on because you never know, you won't see it. I used to experiment with like acids and stuff a lot. You would not see it in the moment, but the moment you go home, I would see like droplets of acids and bases on my clothes, completely ruined. So again, like I have kept those separate. I don't wear them normally in the house, which is also why even if you are using this and you are not touching your charm or earring at all, it's still good to wear gloves. That's my public service announcement. And then we'll now move on to the night sky gradient that I did like a couple of weeks ago. I just wanted to do a full tutorial for that in not 8 times or 12 times the speed of the video, which I have done in my shorts. So we'll move on to that segment, and thank you for hearing my PSA. I hope you continue doing the great work, building the community, and remain healthy in 2025 and beyond.
Alright, time for an experiment. Please feel free to work with me here. I would love to see if you make something similar or inspired by this small experiment. If you have observed, I have two types of videos on my channel, experiment and practice. Although I'm practicing another gradient here, which I have already done in 2 previous videos, I named this video as an experiment because this is my first time doing color mixing with clay. It turned out great, to be honest. I just followed the principles of color mixing. I really wanted to do a sunset turning into a night sky, so I googled, and this is one of the first pictures that popped up. Challenge accepted. I needed a dark purple at the top. For that, I mixed peacock pearl and crimson. These are Sculpey Primo. In blue shade, I only had peacock pearl. From the principles of color mixing, I know that a combination of red and blue gives purple. So different shade of blue and different shade of red would give a different shade of purple. I did almost 50-50 of each color and got this very dark purple. Then I used mauve, and this color is something that I created by mixing white clay with golden glitter. It ended up giving a very beautiful shine throughout the parts it blended with. And then this was ecru, I believe, and lastly black for the ground. And I did mention this in my last video, but I'll give you a recap again. You form the teardrops, put them top to bottom and then bottom to top to make sure there are no unnecessary gaps. And then you flatten them out so that they can be processed using a pasta machine. It can be done using just the acrylic roller too, but it might take longer. So you gotta make sure that you fold color over color, which will be purple over purple and on this side black over black. Then you drop the folded sheet into pasta roller such that the fold is touching the roller. This has two advantages. There is a less chance to form air bubbles, and obviously the colors blend very nicely. So after some 15 to 20 runs, this is what I got. This time I made sure I only ran it enough that the colors did not blend completely into each other and make a muddy color. Ta-da! What a cute color combination! I decided to sprinkle some stars on this, which I regretted later, but it was still okay. I ended up with all these pairs, although I'm still not sure how to design this one. Other three came out to be like this. And I'm happy to announce that these two pairs went to my first customer ever, my sister-in-law. I'm so stoked that my whole family is liking my designs on both my and my husband's sides. I have always kept my creations hidden from people. Barely one or two friends know about my past blog, no one knows about my novels, but I'm finding this is much easier to share. I guess I'm just more confident in my creations. I sometimes even show my videos to my husband. Anyway, the experiment here was color blending, but I feel very confident in my gradient abilities after this. I will keep taking inspiration from nature like this and we'll be back with more color combinations. But this was it for my polymer clay experiment this week. I hope you enjoyed it. If you have any questions about the safety stuff I discussed earlier or the gradient, please comment below. Thank you for tuning in and happy holidays everyone.